We're going to talk today about the Viahaftah, so you can turn to that. We never want to take for granted anything that's done here in the service. We want you to always understand one of the traps that the enemy sets is this. I can get you to do something that looks good. I can get you to do something that sounds good. And if I get you to do it long enough, you'll stop asking the question, is it really good? So as I get you to do that, I can now convince you to do something else based upon that, and something else based upon that. And at the end of the day, we can end up accepting things without truly knowing if it's truly an acceptable offering unto Yahweh.
Amen.
So, I know we talk about the Viahaftah. We talk about it every week. Or we say it every week. And I did this teaching sometime, I think it was last year, earlier this year. Might have been last year, actually. And one of the things we want to do, again, is make sure that everybody is understanding exactly why we do some of the things that we do. So we're going to go through the Viahaftah. And we're going to look at how powerful, so that when we say this, we really understand what we're saying. We're not just getting up here, okay, time to start reading the Viahaftah and just read it. But you will begin to understand and allow it to really minister to your soul. All right. Let's turn first to Mark 12:29. Mark 12:29. Mark 12:29. Matter of fact, let's start at 28. Mark 12:28. And one of the scribes coming near, hearing them reasoning together, knowing that he had answered them well, answered him, which is the first command of all? And Yeshua answered him, the first of all the commands is, hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, with all your might, and with all your strength. This is the first command. And the second is like this. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There are no other command greater than these. And if you look at it in King James, it says, which is the greatest command. And if you look at this account, we know that Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John all write about the time of Yeshua and the time that he spent here. And that we can sometimes read the account spoken from different authors, same event. So if we read that account, it also speaks a word that says that upon these hang all the law and the prophets. And if we read another account, actually it won't have the Shema in there, the Hear, O Israel. So in order, we are students of the Torah. So in order to understand and get a good understanding of what was taking place, we know that this is a time, a real event that happened that they were writing about. So we put them together to really get an understanding of different people's perspective. You know, that's why the scripture says the witness of 2 or 3. That's why if you go into a courtroom setting, they don't just hear one testimony. They're hearing several testimonies to get an understanding of everybody's perspective and put it together. So if we begin to weave together these perspectives, we see a conversation, and we see the question asked, what is the greatest command? What's the first of all of the commands? And now we see the answer in one account where Yeshua says, Shema. Now, here's something special. When you are in, we have to, of course, and this is how we teach, to go back to the understanding from a Hebraic perspective. Why? Because they were Hebrew men. They come from a Hebrew background. They're understanding it from their perspective. When you say Shema to, in this time, a Jewish person, or even today, we say it every week. All of it comes up. Why? Because you're saying to them, Shema, you know the rest. Okay? So he said, he began to speak, and he said, Shema Israel, hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. So automatically their mind goes to the Shema. So let's turn there and ask ourselves, how was he really answering this question? Because the question was asked in such a way, what's the greatest? Right? So we're going to ask ourselves how he was answering their question. So let's turn to Deuteronomy 6:1. And because we have an understanding of the commands, we understand that as the commands are listed, they are grouped. They're grouped. And as we think of the grouping, let's read through them. Everybody read through the commandments with me. Let's start from the top.
I am Yahweh your Elohim. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image. You do not bring the name of Yahweh your Elohim to naught. Remember the Sabbath day to set it apart.
All right, let's stop right there. If we look at those first 4, we can group those in how we interact with Yahweh. This is how we interact with him. Okay? Our relationship with him. Okay? You know, he's telling us who he is and that he is the one and only. Let's go to Yeshua's answer here and how Yeshua starts off. And let's flip back to Mark. We'll be back and forth a little bit. Let's flip back to Mark. Sorry, I probably had y'all turn it too early. Flip back to Mark. And let's look at how he gave the answer here in 30. After he says the first part here, and then he says, this is the first command. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim, Yahweh is one. This is the first command. And then he says, you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. So all of those relate to Yahweh and our relationship with him. The same is thus of the first 4. All right, so let's read on. Number 5. Starting with 5. Respect your father and your mother. You do not murder. You do not commit adultery. You do not steal. You do not bear false witness against your neighbor. You do not covet your neighbor's house. Now, if you notice, all of those govern our relationship with each other. This is how we treat each other, thus how we also treat ourselves. So that's kind of an automatic assumption there, is that you will treat others how you want to be treated. So he governs and gives the commands that govern relationship around. So if we think about it, you know, the first 4 are very vertical. They're between you and the Creator. Thus, Mark 12, 29, and 30. All of these speaking directly to your relationship with Yahweh. And then what does he say? This is the first command. So again, very simply put, we can take those verse 4 and say the one command is how we relate to Yahweh. So we're just simply summing up the 4 into one. And that's what he said here. This is the first command. Then he says, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. So you respect your father. You don't murder your neighbor. You don't commit adultery. You don't steal. You don't bear false witness. You don't covet. All of these, again, tie into what he is calling the second command. All right? So we've kind of laid the foundation. And he's saying, again, in a different account, he says, now upon these hang all the law and the prophets. So I gave this example once before. I'll give this example again. So these are my keys. These are my keys. I've got several key rings here. Several of them. Okay? Now, on this particular key ring hangs all my keys. Now, let me ask you a question. Can I get rid of the key ring and not all the keys fall all over the place? Can. Because if I get rid of the key ring, keys go everywhere. Can I take this key ring and go into the house with it? No. So in order for this to work, all of these, in order, I can't sum up and say, these are my keys. When I tell my wife, hand me my keys, she doesn't start taking one each off. She hands me my keys. She hands me the key ring. Upon these hang all the keys. So when Yahweh begins to speak to us, he may be breaking it down for us, because this is exactly how he gave it to them. He gave it to them in these summaries. And then he said, now Moshe, you come up. And now we go into further detail. And now I'll begin to explain to you, this is how you have another God. This is what that looks like. This is how you do, create a golden image. This is what that looks like. This is how you profane the Sabbath. This is what that looks like. So that he now explains all of these things when he says, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. He's simply explaining what's been summed up here. And again, because he is here in Mark, Yeshua, giving the summary, he's not taking away from the individual pieces. So very clearly, we see that it lines up. So now let's look at what happens when we now put together what Yeshua said. Because again, remember the first thing I said, when you say Shema, Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Viahaftah, and you begin to go through that, the mind of a learned Torah student can go down the list, right? We understand. If somebody just walked up to you and said, "Hear, O Israel," you could finish it. They don't have to say it, but you can finish it. The thought process is there. And this is very much how Yeshua taught. He taught such that he gives you a little piece, and he allows you to think through the rest of it. So now let's turn. Let's turn to Deuteronomy 6:1. Let's look at this. So basically what Yeshua answered him was, the first, since you want to try to catch me, since you want to try to get me in a trap, make me pick one that's greatest, and then you say, well, we'll just do that one. Yeah, that's what he was trying to do. That's what they were trying to do. But what he said was, in essence, all. So he summed them up. So clever. All right, so Deuteronomy 6:1. Y'all have to excuse me. I am literally just getting my voice back, and it ain't back all the way. So, all right, Deuteronomy 6:1. And this is the command, the laws and the right rulings which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess. so that you fear Yahweh your Elohim to guard all his laws and his commands, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, and shall guard to do, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahweh your Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. And it shall be, when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov, to give you great and good cities which you did not build, and houses filled with all kinds of goods which you did not fill, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Be on guard, lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land of Mizraim from the house of bondage. Fear Yahweh your Elohim, and serve him, and swear by his name. Do not go after the mighty ones of the peoples, who are all around you. For Yahweh your Elohim is a jealous El in your midst, lest the displeasure of Yahweh your Elohim burn against you. Then he shall destroy you from the face of the earth. Do not try your Elohim as you tried him at Massa, but diligently guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim and his witnesses and his laws, which he has commanded you. We're going to stop there. So let's now just begin to talk and break down. Now, on the one aspect, we already went through and explained. Yeshua's answer to them was very simply put, all of them. The answer, the question was, which is the greatest command? Which is the first command? Very simply put, the answer was all of them. Here's how we can now prove and begin to prove that out. We understand again that those were sections that he gave them. He gave them two sections and said the ones that you honor and how it relates to you and the Father, your relationship with him, as well as how you honor and respect your fellow brother and those around you. Now, as we begin, if Yeshua gave this answer, then that gets our mind back into the concept of what was happening here when Yahweh spoke it to them. First, we established one very basic principle, and that's who he was speaking to. So let's go back to 1. And it says, and this is the command, the laws, and the right rulings, which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahweh your Elohim to guard all of his commands, his laws, which I command this day. Now who? Your son and your days be prolonged. Now another who? And you shall hear, O Israel. So he's in those 2 verses, in those 3 verses, he's summed up who he's talking to and why he's talking about that. He's talking, 1, about the children of Israel, and not just those that were there, but their heirs. So he said, you, your son, and your grandson. So now we understand he's talking to these generations. Secondly, he tells us why. And very simply, it's because you're going into this land. You're going into the land to possess it. So if I allow you to go into this land, you have to understand the rules of engagement. Okay? Now, let's go down. He also begins to show them that he is going to give them a great increase. And it says, that it might be well with you and that you increase greatly. That you increase greatly. And then he shows them his hand of provision and says, in the land flowing with milk and with honey. So now, let's begin to really pick apart the part that we really more traditionally know as the Viahaftah. And let's look at that. So again, I had you pull out those programs so that you can, even if you want to take any kind of notes on there, these are going to be sectioned off. We're going to look at how these different sections relate. So it starts off, and you shall love Yahweh, your Elohim. And again, we know that this is already established, that the commands are established. So he's now beginning to show us this is how it applies. So in essence, Yeshua is bringing light to the Torah. And not just the Torah in the doing, because the doing is not what they had a problem with. It was in the spirit. It was in the spirit and the understanding of the Torah. So let's go through there. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And now, what he's doing here is establishing that this is what you do because you love Yahweh. Okay? This is why you do it. It's because you love Yahweh. So now we go to this next section where he now begins to speak to us. Remember he said your son, your son, and your grandson? Well, what's the next thing he says? This not only shall it be upon your heart, but he says that these words which I am commanding you this day shall be upon your heart, and you shall teach them diligently, or shall impress them upon your children. So now he's getting into the generations, and he's speaking to those generations. You shall impress these upon your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. So that right there, that little section tells us that we are to keep the commands on our minds. That this Torah of Yahweh is to be front of mind, top of mind. And then he says here, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And of course the hands being that which we work with. So we're working, and he's saying even in the works of your hands, that they will be there. That in your walk, he says here, that they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and that's you see your path. In the scripture, David, he says what? That thy Torah, thy law is a light unto my path, a lamp unto my feet. So there we can see that the command is what should shine not only forward but right here. So it's relevant, it's here and now. It's that lamp that's right here. And it's also a light to the path that allows us to walk in righteousness. So that's the frontlets between the eyes. And you shall write them upon the doorpost of your house. Now we're talking again, we're into the part that's talking about now the relationship between each other. He's already established that you're doing this out of love. Now he's establishing how you do it between each other. So there, upon your house, doorpost of your house. So these commands should govern how we run our household. This should govern. We should be setting, me and my wife, people always say, we have 2 vacation times per year. One that we always take for our anniversary and Sukkot. It governs our house. We're not gonna ever neglect the feast of Yahweh as a household because it's a part of our household. So even something as simple as when the time of unleavened bread comes, this helps to govern our house at that time. People know, don't come in my house. If you're coming to visit, don't bring no leaven. Because it says that I'm not to have leaven. I don't care if you keep the Torah or not. I don't care. You can be as heathenistic as you want to be. You ain't coming up in my house with leaven during unleavened bread. Why? Because he says to cause it to cease from your dwelling. So we can see right upon the doorpost of your house. It needs to be ingrained in even how you run your household. And then it says upon your gates. Now what does that speak to? Gates is speaking around. When you think of it in the Hebraic perspective, just an easy example to draw your mind to, one that we recently read, was with Lot. You know, he was what? An elder in the gates of the land. So the gates are what controls and governs your community. That's what the Hebraic mindset of the gates are. So now we're talking about the Torah not only is running my house, it's ingrained in what we do as a household and as a family, but it's ingrained in the government of my community. So now we see the Torah is governing my house and it's governing my community. So now it's going down. And it shall be when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov. Now he's speaking into existence the promises. Now he's going into getting you to understand that you're here, but Yahweh has promised you. He has promised us. He has promised us an inheritance. And in essence, this is what they're doing. They are preparing to cross over into the land that was promised to them. The promise that was made to Abraham. So now let's get into that. Now what is he saying he's going to do here? And he says, to give you great and good cities, which you did not build, and houses filled with all kinds of goods, which you did not fill. So let me get this right. Let's go back up a little bit. If you diligently guard and obey, then I'll bring you into this place. So what's the opposite of that? Very simply, if you don't diligently guard and obey, I won't bring you into this place. So why is it that we so often want to claim the houses we didn't build, filled with all kinds of goods we didn't fill, the land filled with cities that we didn't build, but we want to be a disobedient people that receives it? It's not possible, people. Yahweh has made the promise to those that are obedient. So let's continue on, because he's making this promise again to those who are obedient. And the land filled with all kinds of, let me read down. Houses filled with all kinds of goods which you did not fill, wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you shall eat and be satisfied. That section there, that next section, is the hand of Yahweh, his provision. Because notice how many times he reiterated it over and over and over, which you did not fill, which you did not build, which you did not do. You didn't do that either. You didn't do that. You know why? Because this is a time of what? Rest. And what happens in the time of rest? Who's our provision? Yahweh. Yahweh is our provision. So if there are things provided to us, it's not because we worked for it. It's because you didn't fill this house. You didn't even build this house. You didn't dig this well. You didn't plant this vineyard. But guess what? You get to live in this house. You get to enjoy the stuff in this house. You get to drink from the well. You get to drink of the fruit of the vine. Even though you had no hand in making any of these things come to be. But because the provision was there. So this is the promise of provision. It's the promise of provision. He says, and you shall eat and be satisfied. It takes me back to the scripture where it says you will come and you will buy grain without silver. You know, you'll come. Oh my goodness, that's awesome. But in 12, next part there, be on guard. That deserves an underline. Be on guard. Because what he's doing now is he is calling our attention to something. He has made us all of these promises. He said we got all of this stuff. He's already spoken and told us who he's talking to. And if we understand who we are, then we know he's talking to us. But now he's saying, warning, be on guard. Then he goes into it and he says, lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage. Now what happens sometimes when we get in a comfortable position? Yahweh has provided for us. He has given us this house and all of these things, and he's dug the well. He's done everything. What sometimes can happen? We get a little forgetful, right? We forget that Yahweh did all of this. And then when people start asking us about our accomplishments, well, I went to school and I learned how to, and I did this and I did that, and I'm so great and I'm so wonderful. We get boastful. We get boastful, and when we get boastful, we forget. We forget that it was Yahweh who brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the house of bondage. We forget that it's him who brought us through the wilderness into this place of promise. But he says, but you are to fear Yahweh Elohim and serve him and swear by his name. And then he begins to go down the next list. Do not go after other mighty ones. Do not go after other mighty ones. Do not go after other mighty ones. And for what reason? Because he says that he is a jealous devil. He's a jealous God. And what does he say? In a different passage of scripture, he says not only is he a jealous devil, but he says that he is visiting the sins of the fathers upon the sons to the third and fourth generation. And he equivalates, he makes it an equivalent of hatred. He said of those who hate me. So neglecting, doing away with, ignoring, bypassing all of the commands is equivalent to hatred. Yahweh says, but those who love me keep my commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments. So we understand here, once again, that Yahweh is not, Yahweh knows us better than we know ourselves. And we don't give him the credit that he deserves.
That's right.
Because we be fooling ourselves. People, we don't fool him. We fool ourselves. So we feel like we can stop at the blessings. But the truth is, if we do not underline in our lives, if we do not take and pay attention to that one little word, warning, 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 because all we want to go off of is the houses filled with all kinds of things you didn't feel and all this kind of good stuff. But then he says be on guard, right? And when he says be on guard, then that's our cue to stop reading, because we're done. The blessings are already stated, right? No. Yahweh warns us. Yahweh warns us. This is the beautiful part. And this is how we know that there is more to the commands than simply going through the first 10. If we simply go through the first 10, we haven't quite gotten our warnings, right? We don't have our be on guards. We don't know what to look out for. Why? We don't know what, he says, have no other mighty one against my face. We don't know what having another mighty one looks like. Because we stopped at the be on guard. So if we continue to read, then we understand. Do not go after the other mighty ones, the mighty ones of the peoples who are all around you. Now we can begin to look around and say, wait a minute. Let me evaluate some of the things that's happening around me. And just because I might look a little different, just because I might do things a little different doesn't mean it's wrong. It simply means that I probably checked something out that you haven't. You know? So I'm going to evaluate these mighty ones around me. I'm going to evaluate the people around me. We're in a foreign land. Y'all agree with that? So we've got to look at some of the things that's done in this land to make sure that it's stuff that we need to be doing.
That's right.
So we don't just take on anything, every tradition that comes our way, simply because our grandmother did it. So if we look around us and we see some of the traditions and we see some of the things that are done, we will begin to see that there's some mighty ones. There's some other gods. There's some other gods that we're taking on if we don't pay attention to what's going on around us. Because we want to get stuck in the place of, well, everybody else will look at me kind of funny if I'm not doing that. If I don't go here on this day, then when somebody asks me if I'm saved, I might not be able to answer yes. Because if you're saved, that means you go to church every Sunday and you speak this way and your preacher says men of God. And if he doesn't say that, then you're not really saved. So we can get stuck in what things look like instead of what they are. So let's challenge ourselves. Let's challenge any and everything around us. And again, one of the reasons I wanted to go through this is I challenge this. This is my challenge. And I can see very clearly. Now, every Shabbat, I don't know if anybody pays attention to me, but ever since I really dove into it, it wasn't just a reading. Every Shabbat has a brand new meaning. Because as I'm going down, now let's go down this list. Let's go down the list of these different sections. As I go down these sections, it just speaks something so wonderfully. All right. So you shall love Yahweh. That's again speaking to our love for Yahweh and who we're actually talking about here. And he's putting it on our hearts so that it's always there. And then he's saying to not only write it, because sometimes we want to get caught up in, okay, well, you know, that was then and this is now. Well, he said write upon your hearts now, right? And this was after the giving of the stone, right? So that tells me something. That Yahweh intended for his Torah to be on the hearts of flesh from the beginning. So as we look at that, we now see that this Torah is a part of our hearts. That's that section. And then he's telling us to teach our children every time we get to this part. I look at my son to remind myself, I've got to impart Torah to him. And then he says, you know, in every aspect of life, when you're lying down, when you're just sitting in the house, when you're walking by the way, and this is just, you know, every aspect. Every aspect. You know, I'm not one of those people that's like, well, everything's got to be holy. I don't watch anything that ain't holy. I don't do anything that ain't, you know, I'm not going to look at anything that's not. I'm not one of those people. Because I believe Yahweh has given us creativity. I believe he's given us, you know, a love and a laughter for life. And I don't believe that, you know, if you don't say something and it's not to the glory of God, you can't say it. I can say, how was your weekend? I can say, how was your day? I can say, have you seen this movie? Was it any good? I can talk about a movie. You know, I can listen to a love song. There's a whole lot of people mad with me for saying that. I can write a love song. As a matter of fact, I can take the scriptures and write a love song. So tell me something I don't know. You know? So, you know, I'm not one of those people, but I truly believe that if you get this part in you really good, that it's in every aspect of your life. So guess what it does? It calls attention to those things that are not, that are dangerous, I'll say. You know. Because, no. You don't have to be holy to go to the grocery store. Oh, I'm going with favor. They're going to give me these groceries for free. No, you don't have to do that. Take your money in there and pay for your groceries. You know, I mean, come on. It ain't like that. But you truly know that you can have the Spirit of Yahweh in every aspect of life. That you could be walking down the aisle of Food Line, just simply picking out your groceries and just, wow, Yahweh, I thank you for provision. This is how the Torah then becomes a part of every aspect of you. Because you begin to just, anything. You're doing anything. And guess what it now gives you? It gives you discernment. This is our discernment. This is our discernment. We rely on emotions. I'm going to say that one more time. Sometimes we think that our emotions is our discernment. Very often we are wrong. Very often we're wrong. Why? Because our emotions are not rooted and grounded in Torah. And so your emotions got you on this roller coaster. And you don't know what's right or wrong. You know? Ladies, you don't know if you missed the right or missed the wrong. Men, you don't know if you missed right or missed wrong. Why? Because it's not rooted in Torah. You're not making this decision rooted in Torah. But if Torah is truly every aspect of you, then Torah will guide you even in that aspect. So now Torah is your discernment.
Yes.
The Torah is your discernment. You can understand if something is right or wrong simply based on Torah. That's how easy it is.
Amen.
So that's every aspect of our lives. And then he's telling us, bind them for a sign upon your hand. Again, the work of our hands and everything that we do. Even when I'm at work, I'm doing this. Yes, I'm doing this for a livelihood for myself and my family. But you know what? Every time I get in front of somebody, every time I sit down and talk to somebody, every time I sit down and do an analysis or a report or anything, I am representing Yahweh. At any point, someone says, you know what? You do really, really good work. I can take pride in that. I can take pride in that. But if I say I'm representing Yahweh and everything I do is half-hearted, sloppy, halfway done, holes all in it, throw it together, whatever, I'm representing Yahweh like that? No. So even in the works of our hands, and then it says there, binding for frontlets between your eyes, again, directing us and giving us sight and vision on how to walk out our lives. And we shall write them upon the doorposts, again, that being what governs even our household. Don't forget that. Ingrain Torah in your household. Allow it to govern your household. The rules of the house comes from Torah. And then upon your gates. This is the part right here that we have to look forward to. Because Yahweh is going to put us in a place one day where the government is upon his shoulders. And when the government is upon his shoulders, guess what? You don't have to worry about working on Shabbat. You know why? It's shut down. Ain't no working on Shabbat. So, truly, we have a hope and a promise to look forward to. And that's definitely something I'm excited about. Because Yahweh is going to give that thing to us and allow us to not fight so hard to just be obedient. We have to fight so hard. So being as frontlets between your eyes and write them upon the doorpost of your house and upon your gates. Yahweh is going to give us those gates that allow us to walk out his Torah. And again, he's telling us to be on guard. Be on guard. Be on guard. Be on guard. So his hand of provision has come in and has done all of these things for us. He's given us all of these things. And this is the part you can get excited about. That Yahweh is going to give us things that we didn't earn and quite frankly don't deserve. But he's going to give us these things. But we've got to be on guard. Take to heart that part. Take to heart, be on guard. Lest you forget Yahweh your Elohim. Because it was him who brought us out of the house of bondage. It was brought us out of Mitzrayim. So we are to fear Yahweh and serve Him and swear by only His name. Very simply put, what that means, sometimes, words mean different things today. That word swear, meaning that we're standing upon His promise. Because it says that He found none greater to swear by. So He swore by Himself. He went into covenant. He went into covenant. So as we say the Viahaftah each week, allow these to ring true. And just think about that provision. Think about these cities. Think about this land flowing with milk and honey. But we got to think about who He's talking to. He says Israel. And He says this is for you, your son, and your grandson. So we got to remember our children. He also says be on guard. But we've got to remember that part. Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Any questions, any comments, anything?